First things first, is Joel Embiid back in the MVP discussion with that show he put on last night? Brandon.
Luke Cornett.
And a Hall of Famer chimes in on the Russ-Seahawks drama. Why is he saying that this isn't going to end well? Plus, the Patriots, the New England Patriots, still with quarterback questions. Could Teddy Bridgewater be the answer? Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Patriots fan, Kevin Wilds. Wilds, you cooking up a Teddy Photoshop for us?
Well, I'm going to after I finish my beautiful painting of Jimmy G holding the Lombardi trophy. I still have a few final touches to make on it. But after that, we'll be good to go.
There it is.
Yes.
We will get to Jimmy and Teddy and all of it. We got to start, though, with the NFL draft. Now just 22 days away. Hey, that leaves more than enough time for a few surprises at the top. And how about this one? The Atlanta Falcons, with the 4th overall pick, reportedly now open to trading down. Reports are they've been getting calls about it. Teams looking for a quarterback up there at number 4. But, Brandon, you think the Falcons keep the pick and then plan for life after Matty Ryan?
Woof. Matt Ryan gives you the best opportunity to win right now and to win big. We're talking about 10 straight seasons with more than 4,000 yards. Only Drew Brees has a longer streak. Matt Ryan is the answer. The real problem here is Dan Quinn. It was always Dan Quinn. You go back to when he first came in or before he came in. 2013, 2014, he was the defensive coordinator in Seattle. They were the #1 defense across the board. You hire that guy because of that. And now you pair him with Matt Ryan, who can light it up at any moment. And what you've gotten is a team, a defense that's been in the bottom third of the defense of like basement for his entire tenure. That's the real problem here. Matt Ryan, I'm always going to go with the veteran-savvy quarterback over a rookie quarterback when you're talking about winning right now. All they need is someone to come in and just reshape that defense. That's what they need. Now, obviously, it's not always on one guy, and Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and all the other guys on that side can get better. But when you think about their problems, it's the same problems the Seattle Seahawks has had for years now, Nick, since the Legion of Boom left. And that is your defense is too predictable. You run single high, cover 3, and we know what you're doing in the red zone, in the fringe area, 3rd and short, 3rd and medium. We know what's coming. And the entire NFL has that playbook.
So here's the thing. Even if you're watching and you slightly disagree with Brandon, you think, all right, Matt Ryan's best days are behind him. He's on the downslope, but even if he's still good, he's no longer great, certainly no longer MVP form the way he was the year they went to the Super Bowl. I still think the Falcons should not be drafting a quarterback. And that is because we know quarterbacks are going 1, 2, 3 in this draft. And you've got to ask yourself at some point, how many great quarterbacks do you really think are coming out of this draft? And Wilds, this year's draft reminds me in an odd way of the NFL head coaching hiring cycle of a couple years ago. In the 2019 offseason, there were a quarter of the league hired new coaches. There were 8 new coaches. And if you remember, seemingly everyone wanted the great new young offensive mind. So Zach Taylor got a job. Adam Gase got another job. Freddie Kitchens got a job. Cliff Kingsbury got a job. And ultimately, you hired 6 offensive coaches and 2 defensive coaches. Fangio and Flores were the only defensive guys hired. And I think it was Greg Rosenthal made this point, but it's a smart one. By definition, somebody was hiring the 6th best offensive mind of the group. Conversely, somebody was hiring either the best or the 2nd best defensive mind, because those were the only 2 guys that got the job. I feel similarly about the quarterback situation right now. If you're drafting at 4 and you are by definition getting, according to the people in front of you, the 4th best quarterback, you're not going to get the best value that you can get for that pick, when instead you could get literally the best player at any other position. You want the best tight end? You got him in Pitts. You want the best, bless you, or offensive lineman? You've got him in Sewell or Slater. You want the best receiver? You got him in Chase or Smith. Or we haven't even mentioned any defensive players, and Brandon's saying, obviously, that's where Atlanta needs help. So I wouldn't want to take a quarterback at 4 that also happens to be the 4th overall pick and the 4th quarterback taken. So for all those reasons, plus I also don't think Matt Ryan's cooked, I don't think quarterback makes a ton of sense for Atlanta in this year's draft.
All right, but I'm going to push back on you. What if the 2 teams in front of you are making mistakes? If you don't believe in Zach Wilson and you don't believe in Mac Jones, all of a sudden Justin Fields was there. Justin Fields was the number 2 guy the entire time. Or Trey Lance is there. Trey Lance was number 1. Some people, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, had him over Trevor Lawrence, and that's a controversial take. But Trey Lance has huge upside. So, Nick, what do you do if you look like, wow, they really believe in Mac Jones? You guys really believe in Zach Wilson. We're actually sitting at 4, and we have the opportunity to get the 2nd best quarterback. I agree with you. I think Matt Ryan has a lot more in the tank. But if the 2nd best quarterback is there because the teams are making mistakes, does that change your philosophy?
Well, potentially. But if that's what you're going to do, then it has to be a Ever Given style total shifting course. And you've got to then trade Matt Ryan. You've got to then, Brandon, say, we're going to upgrade our defense with the draft picks we get for Matt Ryan. What you can't do, because I think Brandon's point's the best one, the reason the Falcons have stunk since the Super Bowl, in large part, is because the defense has been terrible. You don't fix that by drafting another quarterback unless you can then use resources elsewhere to upgrade the defense. What the Falcons can't do, Brandon, I believe, is use the 4th overall pick on a player to sit behind Matt Ryan and have Matt Ryan start the year. So if they want to take a quarterback, then all of a sudden Matt Ryan becomes available. And with all the quarterbacks, Brandon, who we've heard have been potentially been available this offseason, Matt Ryan's name is not one that has come up on any list as teams are calling Atlanta trying to trade for Matt Ryan.
That's right. We're hearing nothing. Straight crickets. And you have to believe that this organization sat down with Matt Ryan. Let's go back to the end of the season. The owner, Arthur Blank, he was non-committal on Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. Remember that. That's what he was saying. He was like, well, we don't know. I'm going to let the new regime come in and make that decision. Well, the new regime has been there for months. They sat down and they got on the same page. We've heard nothing. And, Nick, we have this discussion all the time about how sensitive these quarterbacks are. Me and a lot of people are like, this is just a business, and you're one. And I think you're right. You're like, man, these quarterbacks need to be just like everybody else. What makes you invisible? Why can't we draft another quarterback? Why do you get sensitive, Aaron Rodgers, when they draft Jordan Love? To me, that's just the way of the business. But if you have Matt Ryan sitting there and you're committed to him for the next year, 2 years, whatever that is, and you draft a quarterback, what does that do to Matt Ryan? What does that do to your locker room? Now we're in this whole discussion again around, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, and the other scenarios out there in the NFL.
No, but Wildes makes a good point. This draft isn't an absolute science. You never know who's making a mistake. Just ask Lamar. He's happy everyone ahead of him made a mistake in his draft class. You know who else is looking for a quarterback, still having some questions? The New England Patriots. Your New England Patriots, Kevin Wildes. Another team trying to figure out their future behind center. Could Teddy Bridgewater be the guy in Week 1? We discuss next. First things first. Retweet it or delete it. Let's go. Sticking with the Patriots' future at quarterback. So could Teddy Bridgewater be the answer? An NBC Sports Boston column pondered the idea. Brandon, you retweeting or deleting the idea of the Patriots trading for Teddy Bridgewater?
Yeah, I'm going to delete this, Jenna. And I got to be honest and I got to be truthful. Here's the deal. As a former player, retired player, you're put in this box when you go from playing ball to now broadcasting. So Teddy Bridgewater works out here every single day. I said that yesterday on the show. He comes in every morning at 7 a.m. He jumps in the steam room. He loosens up. He takes a shower, maybe a little too much information, but then he goes out there, works with Coach Troy Jones. Like, that's his routine every single day, right? But when I walk off the show at 9:30, I go into the locker room, and Teddy Bridgewater is usually there. Now he's going in the hot tub, cold tub, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I can't be that guy because I'm in this box, and they're like, well, Brandon, if I give you too information, you might go on TV and say something, right? Anytime I call my guys around the NFL, whether it's general managers, former general managers, head coaches, players, it's the same thing. Well, you know you work for the media now, so I can't say too much to you, or you got to make sure you don't use this. Here's the deal with Teddy Bridgewater. This is what I can say. He's not going to the Patriots. It's not happening. I think there's still discussions to be had with the Carolina Panthers where they got to decide what they want. I believe the Carolina Panthers still want Teddy Bridgewater there. They want a little bit of competition, but we also know that you didn't trade for Sam Darnold for him to really compete. Teddy Bridgewater wants to compete. Teddy Bridgewater is a winner. Teddy Bridgewater's been winning games going back to Little League, Optimist football down in Miami, then going to Louisville, then going to Minnesota before that devastating knee injury. He goes to the Jets, he sits. He goes to the Saints, he sits. He goes now here, and now he's ready to go. So Teddy Bridgewater's not going to the Panthers. It could be Carolina. I mean, he's not going to the Patriots. Could be the Carolina Panthers. And there's some other teams that's calling as well.
So I'm going to retweet it, and listen, I'm going to be totally honest. Teddy Bridgewater is not standing 28 feet away from me as he is with Brandon, so Brandon's commentary on this particular topic might be a little more meaningful to you. However, I'm retweeting it just because I think it's good for New England. I think that you definitely need a Cam insurance policy, and while I know Wilds, everyone says you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, I do think a semi-platoon of Bridgewater and Cam could be very interesting for Josh McDaniels. McDaniels could have his old Tebow packages in for Cam as far as the run-pass option, any goal line stuff, any short yardage stuff, and then let Teddy be more of the point guard drop-back passer. So if Carolina is shopping him, I do think if the price is right, New England should be one of the teams calling about it.
It's an interesting take. I learned two things in this segment. One, Teddy Bridgewater is not going to New England. Two, the House of Athlete water bill is out of control between the steam room, the ice bath, the hot tubs.
Hot showers,
out of control. The smoothie station, we haven't even talked about that. The shower. There's just a ton of aquatic activities. You got to talk to the local water board, see if you can get a discount, Brandon.
Let's talk about Saquon Barkley. I haven't talked about him in a while. Top incoming running back Najee Harris said a healthy Saquon is the best running back in the NFL. We just haven't seen a healthy Saquon. Saquon's coming off that torn ACL in week 2 last season. Brandon, you retweeting or deleting Najee Harris's claim that a healthy Saquon is the best running back in the NFL?
I'm going to retweet it. And Wiles, this is a coincidence. A couple days ago at the water cooler at House of Athlete, I'm standing next to Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks, big defensive tackles, one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League, plays for the Chicago Bears. He's a stud muffin. And the conversation just came up as far as who's the best running back. We have Leonard Fournette here. We have a couple other guys here who just came in. Kareem Hunt just came in. And we have somebody else here. I'm missing somebody. But we started talking about running backs. And Hicks said, I'm going to tell you guys this. The best running back to me is Saquon. I said, what do you mean Saquon? Because there's all this talk around him not hitting the holes. He want to bounce everything. And he really hasn't just been had that season. He said, Brandon, I felt it. Like I'm the one in those trenches. And when he hit me, he hit me. And he said, Saquon is the real deal. So if Akeem Hicks is saying it, then I'm going to say it and I'm going to retweet it.
Okay, wow. Two things I'm going to say here. I think both might anger Brandon Marshall, but he'll thank me for it later. It'll take longer. First point, you can remove muffin from when you say he's a stud. We don't need stud and muffin. That's more like Jenna's 80s comedies than it is NFL commentary, all right? That's first point. Just remove that from the lexicon. Second point, how in the world does Derrick Henry go from riding a dolphin, holding an MVP, to the second best running back? Did you forget about your MVP, aquatic superhero Derrick Henry? So nothing against Saquon.
Listen.
I think he's great. I think he's awesome. I think he's the best running back potentially in the NFC. But Derrick Henry's alive, Brandon, so I have to delete this, and I think you do as well. It's your MVP.
Right. Melvin Gordon was the other running back in the discussion. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Hey, go Badgers.
Yeah. Stud muffin.
I think the
Melvin
Giants would
Gordon.
straight up trade Derrick Henry for Saquon Barkley. So I think Derrick Henry is still the king of the mountaintop. One final note, bonus take, Jenna. I would like this device that he's wearing to train his ACL available for just commercial purposes, because, you know, we've got kids and my kids always want to challenge me to races and I smoke them every time. But if I had some sort of like weight so I could practice, like Saquon's getting toasted by his daughter here. So I don't know how we think about how he's going to bounce back, but I would like to buy this apparatus to race my children. He's getting toasted, so maybe it's a bad
harness.
Well,
That's smart.
let me give a real. Hold on one second. Let me give a real analysis here, Nick. It's almost like the discussion between Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders, right? Like Barry Sanders was doing
very
things
different,
just on his own, right? Yeah, so like as part of this discussion too was, this dude doesn't have a real offensive line. This is a dude that can do everything. He can run with power. He runs with speed. He has the vision. He can catch out of the backfield. He runs routes. And this dude's work ethic is amazing. So that's why this discussion is a real thing, and you have to retweet it.
It's a legitimate question. Exactly. That's totally
He's a stud muffin.
He's a stud muffin, but he's got to stay on the field. You can't be a stud muffin if you're not out on the field. On to Carolina now. Panthers putting out a hype video for their new quarterback, Sam Darnold. Part of the video had Sam looking like that. Iron Man. From Broadway to the big screen. Brandon, you retweeting or deleting the Panthers depicting their new quarterback as Iron Man? Bridge too far for me.
All right, so this is tough for me, right? Because I met Sam Darnold, and when I met Sam Darnold, he wasn't Iron Man. He didn't have that Iron Man. When you see Iron Man in movies, it's like, you know, you can see the facial expressions, and he just like controls the whole room. Sam is like a super nice guy. And I was like, man, do you have the oomph to be able to tell the X-wide receiver, Brandon Marshall, to shut up in my huddle and listen to me? And I didn't know if he had that. But I will say I'm going to retweet it, because if you survive New York and if you survive the situation you were just in, you would have to say he's Iron Man. So because he survived so much in the last 3 years, I'm going to go with Iron Man. But on the other end, I don't think he has that oomph that Iron Man has, like the facial expression, and be able to come in a room in a huddle and be like, guys, this is what we're doing. So I'll retweet it because he survived, Nick.
So here's the thing, and Wilds, I'd love your reaction to this, because my initial answer is blocked. This is so dumb. The guy blocked. You can't call him Iron Man. But then I did some research, because I'm not really big into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I don't know a lot about these guys. But I know, like, for example, Superman, the thing that could kill him, it was kryptonite. His kryptonite was kryptonite. Yep. And I was like, what is it for Iron Man? Because he's a regular guy in a suit. And I found out this morning in a deep dive that it turns out the one thing that can stop Iron Man is mononucleosis. So in that regard, I think it's a good comparison. So I've got to change my answer to retweet it like Brandon. Like, I didn't know they shared that weakness, and so I think it's a good job by the Panthers social media team.
The poor guy got mono, and he's never going to be able to live it down. I think he's going to do great. Is he going to be Iron Man? No. I give this a strong like, Jenna. I'm neither retweeting it or deleting it. I'm just liking it. I'm not totally endorsing it. Just like it. I know. Good. I'm glad the Carolina's supporting the guy.
Iron Man, let's go, baby.
Got to shift back to some hoops now. And how impressive was Steph's 41-point night last night against the Milwaukee Bucks? We'll discuss. But first, Giannis and company joking about their big contracts.
This is cash money, and this is big money. Follow me. So as I said, this is cash money, and this is big money.
Big money.
Big money right here. Hey.
Do we remember what happened like 3 months ago? Do we remember what he signed for?
The biggest ever? $250 million? Like the biggest ever, I think. $250 million, I think.
Look at him. Look at his face. Come on, bro. We talking about
Hey, he can really buy these buildings.
Today is not about me today. Today is not about me. It's about this guy.
this the only. This is
He's a back for life.
I'm on my last.
No. He's a back for life.
You get 3 more.
Back here with Antoine Walker. Antoine, we're going to run the fast break. Here we go. Joel Embiid made a statement last night in Boston, put up 35 in a win over the Celtics.
Cornet.
Good try by the Celtics, though. Then he told Sixers coach Doc Rivers, quote, "I'm back," as he walked off the floor. Guy dominated on and off the court. Antoine, what does Embiid's return mean for the rest of the NBA?
Well, for the rest of the NBA, obviously Embiid being back is tremendous for Philly as they're trying to build some team continuity, and George Hill will join them soon too as well. But I think last night showed that Embiid can score in a lot of different ways. He got to the free throw line 20 times. That's something that we hadn't seen in the past, his ability to be able to use his dominance, get to the free throw line. Obviously, we know he's a good free throw shooter, but it shows that he's almost back to where he needs to be. He's not back quite yet. I want to see a couple more games. And with these 20 games left, if he can stay healthy, the MVP might be still in the making for him. With all the injuries that's went on with all the different guys in the league, the MVP is still out there. So we can't just scratch him off the list yet with the way he's came back these 2 games and the dominance they had. Obviously, still sitting on top of the Eastern Conference.
Twan, the most dominant player, the best player on the planet, is back. Man, I don't know what that move is, the little shuffle, shoot thing that James Harden brought to life a couple years ago. But, man, look at this. He's looking at that one right there. He's 7 feet tall. Man, this team is the real deal. The maturation of Embiid is just impressive. Going back to the bubble, and I'll say it, I was crushing Embiid. Remember his body language? And a lot of us were saying, man, look at his body language. He's not a great leader. This team won't ever win. You insert Doc Rivers, Embiid just improves on the court, off the court. We're talking about within 3 months. I don't know how he ascends to this level. This team is the real deal. But here's what's going to happen. They're going to face the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs, and they're going to lose in 6. But they'll compete. They will battle them. The Brooklyn Nets is not going to be easy for them, but they will win in 6. But this dude right here is the real deal, man. Last night showed how impressive he is and why he's the most dominant and the best player on the planet right now.
So I had 2 takeaways, and I think Antoine's absolutely right that Embiid's still alive for MVP, surprisingly. One is, when you watch these highlights, and I know the Celtics didn't have Tristan Thompson, but right now this would be the 1 versus 8 matchup. And look at the centers the Celtics are trying to throw at Embiid. It's like Luke Cornett, give it a try. Hey, Robert Williams, can you do it? Mo Wagner, are you available?
Nice.
All right, screw it. Taco Fall, put a hand up and see what you can do. And all of them got that work all night long. But the other thing that's really relevant is what the Sixers, with this win, they are back in a tie for first place in the East with Brooklyn. And while I don't think home court advantage is going to be the deciding factor in the East this year, I do think between Philly, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn, the team that gets the 1 seed is at such a decided advantage, Wilds, because they're only going to have to beat one of the other two teams as opposed to having to beat both of them. So the fact that Philly right now is in really good position for the 1 seed and not have to play Philly or Milwaukee in round 2, Brooklyn and Milwaukee in round 2 when they play each other, to me is the most notable thing for the rest of the NBA in the Sixers' chances to make the finals.
Okay, just to dig in on the Celtics, the Sixers absolutely dominated the Celtics. They're 3-0 against them this year. If this was a playoff matchup, it'd be a first-round exit for the C's. And we can see how much Embiid just tore them apart. 3-0, averaging darn near 40 points a game, shooting 60%. This is not good. So Danny Ainge, buddy, you can get ready for that postseason presser. It's going to be ugly. If they hold on and make the goodness gracious.
Yeah, not great.
Okay. Yeah, throw Danny Ainge under the bus. None of it is his fault. Head out west.
Jenna, sorry.
Warriors came back to beat the Bucks by 1. I take it personally. Thanks to 41 points from Stephen Curry and a game-saving block by Andrew Wiggins. Big win for the Dubs. They needed it. They snap a 3-game losing streak. Twan, was the Warriors' comeback against a Bucks team without Giannis a big deal?
I think it was a big deal. You know, Golden State right now is playing really hard to try to see if they can get into a playing game. I think right now they're sitting at like 10, so they have an opportunity to have a shot to get into the playoffs. But after that debacle and after losing by, I think, 50, 60 points last week, any type of win right now is a confidence builder to get this group back together, to get them to playing decent basketball. They was not having a bad season. We all know Steph is having a great season individually. But this is a nice comeback win, regardless who's on the floor or not, for Golden State, who I think would accept being into a play-in game for the playoffs. I think that would be an acceptable season for them this year. But just to get back on the right track, and obviously for Milwaukee, Nick just spoke about the seeding process. This is a bad loss for Milwaukee, even with Giannis being out. You want to win these games, especially when you play so hard for 3.5 quarters and have control of the game. You want to close these games out without your superstar. So Golden State, this is good for Golden State right now to be able to come back and get this win on their home floor.
Twan, man, look, I don't know the makeup of it. Well, I know the makeup of a basketball player. Y'all totally different than football players. I've never been in an NBA locker room, so I don't know how it is there. So small picture, it means a lot. It's a big deal because you've been losing, you've been getting your butt whooped the last 3 weeks. And losing in the NFL locker room, it is terrible. It's toxic. It's one of the worst environments you can be in. And I would have to assume that it's the same thing in the NBA locker room. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry, multi-million-dollar athletes. And you're talking about being on a platform and being in front of a microscope every day. You need to perform every single day. I need your best. So right now, yes, it was a great win. But big picture, this doesn't thrust you back into the conversation of, oh, we're back on track, because you guys are not even close to becoming NBA royalty again. So big picture, this team needs a lot of work to get back to where they were years ago.
That's right, Brandon, but I think the Warriors spent too much time worried about the big picture and not enough time worried about actually winning games. You had Steve Kerr earlier in the year saying we're not going to chase wins. Well, now Steph plays 38 minutes in a regulation game because they are chasing wins because they want to make the play-in. You have Draymond earlier this week or last week saying, yeah, the play-in tournament doesn't excite me. Well, it's the only thing left to be excited for. And this, by the way, is the only way the Warriors can beat good teams, is if Steph goes absolutely incandescent, and he did last night. Right. Admission from me, Jenna, I was so excited about the NBA last night. There were 2 super late games, East Coast time last night. Clippers, Blazers, but that game was a blowout. And this game here, man, I was up till a little after 12:15, and I'm like, oh, the Bucks are up by 10 with 5 minutes left. I turned it off and fell asleep. Woke up this morning, found out the Warriors had staged a crazy comeback, so I missed the end of this. For the Warriors, who had lost 7 of 8, this is an important victory. And if Steph has to play 38 minutes to get wins, then he's got to play 38 minutes to get wins, because this team can't be the 11th place team in the West and miss the play-in altogether, and they were barreling towards that.
And he did it with that bruised tailbone last night, too. Let's stay out west. Clippers looking good last night. Really good. Like Nick didn't have to watch it good. Like PG had 36, like Kawhi had 29. And like everyone is all in on Rondo. Clips making the magic happen. Antoine, what was your reaction to the Clippers' blowout win over the Blazers last night?
I thought it was a solid win. I mean, the Clippers right now are finally getting healthy. You think about the addition of DeMarcus Cousins and Rondo. Patrick Beverly was back in the starting lineup last night. So it was good to see them have a full unit. And if they want to get to aspirations of getting to the NBA Finals, they need to be at full strength. And Paul George has been kind of up and down over the last 2-3 weeks. I missed some games. So it was good to see him back on top of his game last night. But I was impressed. They're deeper now. I don't know how much DeMarcus Cousins is going to be able to help him. He looked good last night. I know Nick doesn't like the Rondo pickup. He thought it's one of the most horrible things, but I still believe Rondo is going to be very effective for them come playoff time. So I still believe he's going to be okay for him. And getting Patrick Beverly back. As they get healthy, they'll be a lot better. I like what Kawhi Leonard's at right now. Just playing through injuries, making sure he plays every game, not using that load management as an excuse. I think he's going to be much better come playoff time. We're really impressed with the win last night.
So it was a great win, but also it wasn't a surprising win in this regard. The Blazers can't beat these guys. The Blazers have played this version of the Clippers since they added Kawhi and Paul George 5 times. They are 0-5, and it's more concerning than that. Dame is yet to have a good game against this version of the Clippers, and in fact, Dame has had 3 truly bad games all year. The very first game of the season and the 2 games against the Clippers. And right now, if the playoffs started today, 3 versus 6 is Clippers, Blazers. The Blazers would rather play any team in the league in the playoffs than the Clippers, who they've shown no ability to even compete with. Remember, they lost to them in the bubble in the game. The Clippers were resting everyone, and Dame missed the free throws. They just can't beat them, and Dame can't get loose against them. So that's my takeaway, is that the Blazers can't beat these guys even in a one-off.
Yeah, well, so Nick, my reaction last night watching this was, oh, this is the team I've been talking about all year. This is the team that I've been saying, look,
that's right.
Come the end of the year, they're going to hit their stride. This is the team that I picked to win the West over your boys, the Lakers. Now, obviously, AD's down, LeBron's down, so that changes a lot of things, right? I truly believe head-to-head, healthy Clippers, healthy Lakers, this team wins. And then this whole Rondo talk. We saw Rondo play, he had 15 minutes last night on the court. We're talking about a dude that controlled the game while he was out there, spacing and pace of the game. This is a classic point guard. So this whole playoff Rondo, whatever you think we're going to, like, this dude was awesome last night. Paul George talked about it after the game. And then you got Boogie Cousins. Oh, Boogie Cousins, he's done. He only played 8 minutes, but he gave you a quick seven points. Like, this team is right where they need to be right now. I really like it. I was impressed with the win.
As an honorary Blazers fan, this is how the season ends. Dame gets shut down. He only scored 11 points, and they can't make stops. They gave up 47 points in their first quarter. They came back and made it a little bit of a game. But if you give up darn near 50 points in the first quarter, you're not winning the game, Jenna.
That's right.
All right. We put that to bed because we got some Russell Wilson to talk about, guys. There's some news. Why is one Hall of Famer saying the marriage between Seattle and its quarterback headed south? Marriage is hard. Just going to say it. We'll have that story for you next. First things first. Back here talking Russell Wilson. First things first, it's been quite the dramatic offseason for Russ, for the Seahawks. Is he staying there in Seattle? Teammate Carlos Dunlap yesterday with a little confirmation said Russ told him he's in Seattle to stay, but Hall of Famer Warren Moon still not convinced. He joined the Huddle and Flow podcast yesterday. Take a listen to what he had to say.
This stuff going on with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. It's funny because we've seen so many former players, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, so many of these other guys, Michael Bennett, Marshawn Lynch, and not end really great for them. There's always kind of a year brush fire before they parted ways with the team. Where do you think this is headed?
I think it's kind of headed, unfortunately, in the same direction. I think right now it's almost like a marriage that's starting to just have squabbles, and they're squabbling about, certain little issues, whether it's pass protection, whether it's talent. There's all these little squabbles going on right now, and I think because of Russell's contract situation, there's not a whole lot the Seahawks can do as far as moving him somewhere else, even if they wanted to. So I think he's definitely there this year. Unless they just want to take a hit and not become a really good football team for a year or so. But I think that the marriage is not going to end very well going down the road. I think this squabble is going to turn into more of a separation and then a divorce at some point.
Boy, everybody's got some input on what's going to happen out there in Seattle. Brandon Marshall, what is your reaction to Warren Moon's comments?
All right, every day when I sit in this chair, I got to figure out, like, okay, how do I occupy this seat? And what's my role on this show? I'm a ex-football player that loves football, can talk a little ball, loves basketball, big fan in basketball, so I can talk a little ball there. There's a difference between reporting and opining. Opining is giving one's opinion. All right, and that's what we usually do. We give our commentary, we give our analysis, right? But then there's some reporting. Some of the best in the business is Jay Glazer. He reports. He talks on facts and what he knows. Adam Schefter, he reports. He talks on what he knows. Every once in a while, they may opine here and there. Right now, me who opines a lot, me who gives my color analysis and gives my commentary, I am about to report. This conversation is over. Russell Wilson is going to be a Seattle Seahawk for a very long time. Now, we can't predict the future. We don't know if, you got so many things that can come into play down the road. We know that. But right now, Pete Carroll sat down and said, you know what? The philosophy difference, the change, the difference in philosophy that we had, let's get on the same page. I need to give my Hall of Fame quarterback everything he needs to be successful and lead this team. They're on the same page. I would say their relationship is probably better now than it's ever been. So sometimes you got to go through this. You talk about marriage, you talk even the great Warren Moon, opining. Love it. He's giving his opinion on it. Talking about marriage and it's rocky right now and it's going to end rough next year. No, it's not. They're on the same page right now. And Russell Wilson, Nick, he wants to be a Seattle Seahawk for a very long time. He really loves Kobe Bryant's story. He really loves Derek Jeter's story where we're talking about somebody stayed in one organization for 20 years. The problem is those guys won. He has won, but that was a very long time again. Russell Wilson is not thinking about Super Bowl II. He's thinking about Super Bowl III, Super Bowl IV. He's literally thinking that. I played with the guy. So right now, I am reporting this because Russell's not talking. Pete Carroll's not talking. And every day we're going to come up and, what's going on with Russell Wilson? Who's calling now? It is over, Nick. He will be there for a very long time. It's dead. It's done.
And it should be noted for the audience, maybe new viewers of the show or people that aren't able to watch every day, the very first person, before Russ even went on the Dan Patrick show and kind of started this speculation, the very first person to talk about there being some drama in Seattle related to Russell Wilson was Brandon Marshall. And now Brandon Marshall can cap that off by being the person that ends this story saying they have had a meeting of the minds. And if we're being honest, Russell Wilson has won the power struggle in as much as understanding what you have. And that was the concern that I had for the Seahawks, Pete Carroll and John Schneider. Were they going to understand that whether they thought Russ was being irrational or unreasonable or a diva, even if they thought he was being all of those things, it's totally immaterial because he is the key to you being a relevant franchise. And Brandon, while you were talking there, you mentioned Kobe, and it just spurred something in my brain. Because Kobe, we remember him for a number of things, but one of them is Laker for life.
I know exactly where you're going.
But that almost didn't happen.
Right.
Kobe went on
it was almost done.
Stephen A's radio show 12, 13 years ago and said, I don't think it can work out. was ready to be traded to the Clippers. Back before people had camera phones, when you actually had to have a camcorder in your hand, he happened upon some guys in a parking lot who had a camcorder, and he torched his teammates, said, "You want me to play with Andrew Bynum? Like, you got to be kidding me." And what did the Lakers do? Did they trade Kobe Bryant? No. They traded for Pau Gasol, and he got that next act of his career that included 3 straight trips to the finals and 2 championships, and which what allowed him to be a Laker for life. So Russ didn't torch a teammate the way Kobe torched Andrew Bynum, but he did torch his teammates a bit with the offensive line. And he didn't say, "I can't be a Seahawk the way Kobe did with the Lakers on Stephen A's show," but he did give you a list of teams. And it sounds to me like what you're reporting, not sounds to me, clearly what you're reporting is the Seahawks are coming to the same realization the Lakers did 13 years ago. We've got to have this guy. It only works if we have this guy, so we've got to make this guy happy.
100%. I mean, Pete Carroll has done it one way for a very long time. Both of these guys want to win. I was there. I spent the whole year there. And I'm telling you this is not coming from Russell. This is not coming from the Seattle Seahawks organization, people I know in the personnel department. It's not coming from guys on the team that I'm close with. This is coming from my experience in that organization for a year. When we talk about relationship between head coach and quarterback, it's probably the most important relationship in football. They have a tremendous relationship. And it just took this. In this moment, Russell Wilson had to stand up for what he believes. Whether it's right or wrong, he had to do that. Russell Wilson, he wants to win. He wants to win with flair. He wants to win in a certain way. He's not happy and okay with winning 1 Super Bowl, not 2 Super Bowls. When we talk about Patrick Mahomes, when we talk about Aaron Rodgers, we talk about Tom Brady, he wants us to be talking about him there because that's what the greats believe. So this whole Russell Wilson thing and Pete Carroll thing, it just comes down to them finally having the conversation that they needed to have to get on the same page. Now, Kevin, remember, they drafted this guy back in 2012 in the 3rd round. So a lot of organizations, when you find someone in the mid rounds, the 3rd, the 4th round, or even the late rounds, it's like, oh, I did this. Oh, we developed him. We made that decision. We chose him over Flynn. We just paid Flynn, gave him a 2-year deal, $20 million, and we decided before the first game, we're going with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was a kid when he came in this league. He is a man now. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a businessman, entrepreneur. He wants to do big things. He wants to own MLB teams, MLS teams, NFL teams. He wants to do it all. So now they have to respect him as such, and now after this conversation, they're on the same page. I truly believe that.
Okay. Brandon, you know when you see firefighters putting out a fire and there's no longer huge flames, it's pretty much done, and they're still there spraying all the water, like, wow, they are really soaking this place. It's because they want to make sure that there's not even one tiny ember that could start up again. We've got to play the whole season. I don't think the Seahawks are going 16-0, and I saw in New England when there was rumors of problems, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick won a Super Bowl, and he still wanted out. What do you see in the future that could re-spark a flame that sort of divides Russ and the Seahawks? Nothing?
Pete Carroll walking into Russell Wilson's kitchen and saying the things that we talked about back in April and late March, about letting you cook and giving you what you need, and this philosophy of, we don't have to run the ball on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. We're going to give you what you need. If he reneges on that, then that's what's going to spark it. But I can't see that. I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. 2 men sat down and had a great conversation. Now they're on the same page, Jenna.
All right, Brandon Marshall putting the capper on the Russell Wilson drama. We take a turn. Kevin Wildes has a capper on the weird and wonderful from yesterday. Go ahead, Kev.
The world of baseball continues to provide us with wonderful moments and some weird. First up, broken glass. This is Tyler O'Neill. Foul ball, breaks glass. Everyone's always trying to make glass stronger and stronger. Let me give you a recommendation. Go the other way. Everyone likes when glass breaks. We like when this camera breaks. We always like nothing more than a broken backboard in basketball. Strong glass, overrated. Weak glass, fan favorite. Free advice to the people at Corning. Probably save you some money, too. Moving on to the wonderful.
I've been to the
this
Corning
is another
factory.
sort of Mike Trout. It's a bomb here. Look at Ohtani. Bye. Bye. Waving goodbye. You rarely get the base runner trash talk. Waving goodbye. Wonderful. I also wouldn't mind the old ship captain. Oh, is there land? You know, the old, score looking out over the horizon if you wanted something up to freshen up. Okay,
Rocky
moving
the
on
sun.
to the weird. Another basketball type play. Never seen this, even though baseball's been going on for 100 years. Kinsler throws the ball through Michael Conforto's legs. What the heck? You know, when the Red Sox and Mets, the ball went through Bill Buckner's legs and made headlines worldwide. This didn't no one even was talking about it. Why not? Unfair against the Red Sox. That's why. Moving on to the wonderful. You want a great Twitter follow. It's called This Day in Sports Clips. It's wonderful. April 7th, 1994, the GOAT. Gets 2 RBIs in an exhibition game in Chicago. And I know
the GOAT.
I don't think LeBron should necessarily suit up for the Dodgers. But hey, can we get Kyler some at-bats? Why not? Tom Brady was drafted by the Expos. Get him some at-bats. Jameis, you want to throw a few rounds? Sure. Throw a few innings. Congratulations.
LeBron couldn't get a hit.
Good game. You're better than every...
He couldn't get a hit.
He's from
a
a
pitcher. You know that.
He hit
That's why he's the GOAT.
202. Jordan hit 202.
You know,
This is the most overrated minor league stretch ever.
LeBron can't hit.
He hit
LeBron
you guys
200.
know.
actually.
Oh, my God.
All right. You know who played baseball, don't you? A basketball player named Danny Ainge. Speaking of basketball, let's talk.
Maybe you should
some
go back
hoops,
to that
Brooklyn Nets.
because he's a terrible
They
GM.
expect.
Maybe you should give it a run again, Jenna. Third base coach
Words,
for the Red
words.
Sox, Jenna.
Danny Ainge, we're back after this. First things first, back here with NBA champ Antoine Walker. All right, Twan, let's talk some Nets now. 1 step forward, 2 steps back with this team always. You got Kevin Durant slated to make his grand return tonight against the Pelicans, but still no big 3 because now James Harden is out. News yesterday that Harden will sit 10 days with that nagging hamstring strain and then be reevaluated. Twan, should Nets fans be more excited for Durant's return or more worried about Harden's hamstring?
I think they should be more excited for Durant's return. I mean, this injury turned out to be something much more serious than we thought it was going to be. When you look at, he's only played in 19 games. He missed 23 games. So he needs to get back on the court. And you got to count the time that he missed. Obviously, he's been very efficient in the games that he's played. But you got to get him back on the court, get in some basketball shape, really push his body, because if you're trying to make a deep run into the playoffs and obviously win the NBA title, you're going to have to be healthy. So we need Durant to be on the floor. I think Harden obviously is going to take some time off. He's been the one durable guy that they had all season. So this is not going to hurt them. I think eventually the Brooklyn Nets, probably the last 8 to 10 games, they need to be at home and start to get some game continuity on the floor together. So if I'm Steve Nash and I'm looking at this, I want to be with about 10 games to go. I want to have a full roster so I could try different lineups. I could try see who's going to be better. Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge. You can't continue to keep playing with guys being injured if you want to make a deep run. So I think they're looking at the health part. But those last 10 games, I want to be 100%. But it's great to see Kevin Durant back on the floor. We've missed him a lot this season.
Yeah, well, man, it's hard to be excited because the only exciting thing around this team is them doing it together. Those 3 playing together and doing what everyone said they couldn't do. Win a championship with a sensitive Kevin Durant, with a ball-dominant, no defense playing James Harden, and an unpredictable, earth is flat Kyrie Irving. Like, that's the excitement, is them being able to do what people said they couldn't do. Like, this James Harden injury, it can be a big thing because it's nagging. You know that. There's some injuries for us athletes where it's just nagging. Soft tissue, a quad, a hammy, something like that, a high ankle sprain or just an ankle sprain. It knocks you off your pivot. It knocks you off your entire game, and you're not who you want to be out there. So James Harden yesterday, Steve Nash came out and said, well, the images are clean. And now, a day later, after he only played 4 minutes against the Nets, pulled himself out, now they're saying there's a strain. Well, what type of strain? Is this a grade 1? Is this a grade 2? They're saying they're going to reevaluate in 10 days. This could be a big deal. We just saw how a hamstring or a calf knocked Kevin Durant out for how long? So, look. It's terrible. It's terrible right now because they're right now battling for the #1 seed in the East, and they are the team to beat, and they've been playing sensational with or without certain guys as far as their big three. So we want to see them all together so they can definitely dominate and go into the playoffs at full capacity.
Well, listen, I'm excited to see Durant back on the court because watching Kevin Durant play basketball is one of the greatest experiences for any sports fan that cares about basketball. And there was concern like, oh, after the Achilles, is he going to be the same guy? Yeah, he was the same guy. He was 29 a game, super efficient, and he was playing at an MVP level before he missed a couple months, and people kind of forgot about it. But the two words that matter, Wilds, are chemistry and sacrifice. And we are not getting to see how either of those is going to play out. Chemistry, they've got to be on the court together, and now they won't be able to be for at least another 10 days, probably another 2-3 weeks, and then we'll see if when Harden's healthy, if everyone else is healthy. Sacrifice to me is interesting. Kyrie Irving this year is shooting a career-high field goal attempts per game. Kevin Durant, in the games he's played, is shooting the most shots he has taken per game since he played for the Thunder. And James Harden was the guy who was sacrificing. He was 15 shots per game, which is the lowest he had had since he was on the Thunder as a role player, until KD went down. Since KD went down, he's 21 shots per game, which is right in line with most of his years in Houston. So nobody's really had to sacrifice. And I'm just curious to see how it's going to work because the guy of those three, I think everyone agrees, and this is not shade, it's just accurate, the worst of those players, even though he's a great player, is Kyrie. He's also the least equipped to sacrifice. And he's shooting more shots this year than he has any year of his career. Who is going to be the guy who takes the step back? And if the answer is Durant, I am telling you, that's the wrong answer. He's the second best player alive. You're not better by him doing less. And so that's what I want to. That's what I want to see. Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Okay, I understand the chemistry thing, but you keep talking about sacrifice. First off, they've already done that. And before they even took the court together and before the trade even happened, you have to believe, these three sat down and said, how are we going to do this? It's the same process that D-Wade, Chris Bosh had to go through. Now, the whole conversation was, well, these are three of the same guys. They need to have the ball in their hands. They're ball-dominant guys. That was the conversation. But when you talk about sacrifice, don't you believe that Kevin Durant has the ultimate blueprint? Didn't they have to figure that out back in Golden State, out in the Bay? When you had Steph, you had Clay, you had Dre, you had himself, and then you had Iggy, you had all these other guys on the bench that came in and had to figure out, how do we do this together? So I understand that it seems like it's hard, but you got guys that are willing to say, you know what? James Harden is hot right now. James Harden is the MVP. That's what James Harden says. That's what a couple people are now coming around and starting to say. So Kevin Durant, he has to come in and say, you know what? He's the hot hand. We're going to roll with him. Same thing with Kyrie. Now you got KD coming back. You got James Harden on the bench. If KD comes in and he's balling, James Harden has to come in and he has to go back to where he was back in the 13th game of the season. And that's, you know what? I'm only taking 15 shots. And I'm the point guard and I'm distributing and I'm controlling the space and I'm controlling the pace of the game. So this whole thing about sacrifice, I just think, they've already shown you that. And KD is the perfect example, Wilds, when it comes down to how to do that because they did it in Golden State.
Okay, I believe that everyone's willing to sacrifice. I think it's easy to say I'm willing to sacrifice emotionally because I think everyone has something to prove. Harden wants to win more than everything. He needs it for his legacy. Kyrie wants to prove that he can win a championship without LeBron. KD wants to prove that he didn't need the Warriors to win a championship. They come together, they win a championship. The question for you is this, Antoine. Does their game allow them to sacrifice? Is there a point where you say, you know what, I need X amount of shots to get into my rhythm? We just saw Kyrie the other day against the Knicks. You could see the more he shot, the better he was. I don't know if he's the same Kyrie if he's taking 12 shots a game. Do you think that's an issue?
It could be an issue. Obviously, these guys are veteran guys and all-stars, so you think they'll be able to get through that. I think the biggest thing, and it goes back, I think chemistry plays a big part. They got to get some continuity of playing together. And also, you got to give Steve Nash a chance to figure out what lineups are going to be good.
Yeah.
How Blake Griffin, how LaMarcus Aldridge, how those guys are going to fit into what they got going on. And you can't do that with guys taking 4 and 5 games off at a time. Now you're running out of time. You need to get these guys on the floor together. Like I said, Harden is nursing the injury right now, which is fine. You're fighting for a #1 seed. They have to get on the floor together. So I'm looking at, if I'm Brooklyn, it's still the 8-10 games left in the season. I want to be at full strength so I can play with my lineups, do different things, work on the chemistry, see where guys are going to be effective at, because you got to go to your bench a little bit. So it's a lot of things that are missing. They haven't been a team this year because you have 3 superstars and you add 2 other stars, you're able to be in first place. That's all that is. You've just been more talented than most people.
But you can't win a
that
championship
can't,
like
figure
that.
it out. They're in first place in the East. So let's see when they do figure it out what they end up looking like. Twan, thank you so much. As always, we got to get back to football. Teddy Bridgewater, could he end up being the answer to all the quarterback questions up there in New England? First things first. We're 22 days away from the madness that is draft night. Are we locked in at the top? Well, 1 and 2, seemingly yes. But at 3, the latest report says the Niners are locked in on Alabama quarterback Mac Jones. News to Nick Saban, apparently, who was asked yesterday about Mac's pro day and if he had any correspondence with San Francisco. Take a listen.
What did you tell Kyle Shanahan about Mac Jones?
He didn't ask me a thing. Didn't ask me a thing. I said hi to him. John Lynch, too. They did not ask me a thing about him. They didn't ask me a thing.
John, picking up a theme on how much he was asked. We got former Pro Bowl receiver TJ Hushmanzada in the house. TJ, you buy the Niners are locked in on Mac Jones, or do you think there's a chance that maybe this is all a smokescreen for who they may want to take?
I truly believe the 49ers, they like Mac Jones, but there's some type of dissension within the organization. I believe one part of the team, probably Kyle Shanahan, wants Mac Jones. And then there's another section of the team, they may want Trey Lance or Justin Fields. And Mac Jones can play football. He completed 77% of his passes last year. But when you're throwing, he pretty much played with 4. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4. Top 15 receivers on one college football team. Mac Jones can play. I believe part of the 49ers want him, and I also believe some coaches in front office people, namely John Lynch, want somebody else. And so when you hear Nick Saban say, oh, he didn't ask me a thing, that makes you believe like, oh, they're trying to keep it a secret. You know, you guys talked about Mac Jones. They're not just there just talking. You guys are talking about the quarterback. And so that type of stuff and those type of conversations make you believe that somebody's not telling the truth there.
So here's my problem, TJ, and this is going to be a problem for me until the draft. All of the reporting says the top 3 picks of the draft are done. Trevor Lawrence is going #1, but we've known that for a while. Zach Wilson is going #2 to the Jets. We've known that for, it seems like, a couple weeks. And Mac Jones is going #3 to the Niners. Everyone is reporting that. People that talk to GMs, people that talk to scouts, people that talk to teams. It is still almost incomprehensible to me, though, that this is going to happen. And maybe I have too much faith in John Lynch and in Kyle Shanahan. But It is the logical part of my brain refuses to believe that those two guys watched the same season of college football I watched, looked at these players and said, you know what quarterback is worth 3 first-round picks? The Alabama quarterback? That's the conclusion they came to? So it's like you have all this wealth of reportage saying this is done. And then you have, I think for a lot of us, our own eyes, our own gut saying, but he's not good enough. He's not a franchise changer. And if your belief is we just need a quarterback who's not going to overthrow the game winner in the Super Bowl and who's not going to throw a bunch of interceptions, well, then you don't trade 3 first-rounders to get him. So I don't root for the Niners, but I also don't root against them. I'm agnostic on them. But part of me, for Niners fans, is rooting that this is a smokescreen because to me it is so patently illogical. Because at no point, Brandon, in my, in the recent history of watching college football, did I ever even consider the possibility, who's going to be the better pro between Justin Fields and Mac Jones? Mac Jones. And I don't think anybody thought that all football season, and now everybody thinks he's going before him. So I can't figure it out, is my candid answer. I hope it's a smokescreen, Brandon, for Niners fans.
He fits their system.
Man, Nick, this is tough for me because the only thing that I'm buying and the only thing that I'm locked in on is that the best quarterbacks in this draft in this order are Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and then Zach Wilson, and then possibly Mac Jones. That's the only thing that I'm locked in on. However, I know this organization is savvy. They're smart when you talk about what they got in their scouting department. And they truly believe in their philosophy is going after guys that are developed. Meaning that there's some coaches and there's some programs that still coach guys and they still develop guys so they are pro ready. When you think about that, that's Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. They still, the game that you and I entered, they still play that same pro-style football. We're talking about guys understand the why behind what the coaches are asking them to do. And we heard Bucky Brooks come on our show and talk about, this whole Kyle Shanahan philosophy where I just need a smart quarterback. It's like he plays Madden and he plays video games and the quarterback's the joystick. So he needs a guy that can come in and do what Mac Jones has done his entire career at Alabama. I know that they believe this guy is probably the best deep thrower in college football right now in this draft. I believe that. I know that, excuse me. So when you think about that and you think about what Devontae Smith told me a couple months ago when I asked him, I said, what makes this guy special, Mac Jones? He said, Brandon, he said, this dude is that guy. He knows everything that's going on the field. He is 10 steps ahead of everyone. He plays chess. So I can see this happening, but I'm with you. The best quarterbacks in this draft in order is Trevor Lawrence, is Justin Fields, and then Zach Wilson. But the 49ers, their philosophy is different. And Kevin, the reason why it's tough for me is because the Shanahans made me. That's the offense that I'm used to. So I got to believe in the offense and the philosophy that helped me rise to the position I was at the wide receiver position in the National Football League.
Okay, so Nick keeps bringing up that old Jimmy G overthrew Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl. If Mac Jones did that, would we think that was a success? I would. If Mac Jones was able to bring the 49ers to the Super Bowl, we'd be like, oh my God, brought him to the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, he's winning 75% of the games. That's who you have right now. I'm not convinced that Mac Jones versus Jimmy G in an open tryout, that Mac Jones is going to look a million times better than Jimmy G. Well, I'm a Jimmy G guy, and I'm torn, Brandon, because I am rooting for this mistake. I'm rooting for them to take Mac Jones and ship Jimmy G out to New England, where we value winning, in which the 49ers don't do.
So 2 things need to happen for this show to take the next step. Brandon has to get over his love affair with the Jets, and Wilds has to get over the love affair with Jimmy G. The idea, they traded 3 first-round picks to replace him. All right, so he's gone. He's not going to be their guy past this season and maybe not even this season. And I heard Jenna mention Mac Jones fits the Shanahan system. I don't agree with that. If the Shanahan system is just competence, I think Justin Fields, who can get out and run on a bootleg, fits the system a hell of a lot more. And the idea that it's like you only know what you know. I know that sounds obvious. Point being, Kyle Shanahan's like, well, I've made it work with Matt Schaub. I got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. Matt Ryan, who's always been this level. With me, he was this level. What do those 3 guys all have in common? None of them incredibly gifted physically. Kyle Shanahan 1 year had an incredibly gifted physical specimen at quarterback. It was RG3. And they set every rookie passing record. They got to the playoffs. They might have gone on a playoff run if RG3 doesn't get his leg injured. I just don't know why they wouldn't want to try to duplicate that as opposed to trying to duplicate what they did with Matt Schaub, Jenna. I just don't understand
But it doesn't always seem to be about the best quarterback in the league. Sometimes it's about who the head coach thinks he could win, which quarterback he could win with the best among all the quarterbacks, which seems to be what the Niners are doing with Kyle Shanahan approaching this draft. Let's stay here. How about this? We talked about the Falcons. With that 4th overall pick, reportedly they are open to trading it, that they've been getting calls about it, teams looking for a quarterback themselves. As the Falcons, try to figure out what they want to do. Are they going to stick with Matt Ryan? Can they get something for him? Do they want to bring someone in? Is there someone better out there at 4? TJ, what do you think the Falcons should do with that number 4 pick? You think they should keep it and plan for life after Matt Ryan?
No, they shouldn't plan for life after. They need to fix that defense. Matt Ryan and that offense, that wasn't the problem. It was, can we stop somebody on defense? For years, the Falcons have been a bad defensive football team. Whether they trade the pick and get more picks, I don't know. But draft the replacement for Matt Ryan when you need to win now. Matt Ryan, if you give him a good defense, with Julio and Calvin Ridley, he's still going to be able to put up yards and stats and have a really good offense. His defense is terrible. The Falcons' defense is terrible. They need to fix that first.
You're 100% right. Sometimes, we have a job to do on this show, and it's to entertain and sometimes just give analysis. And it's time just to give analysis and be black and white. Here's the deal. Matt Ryan is not the problem. Matt Ryan, we're talking 10 straight years throwing for 4,000-plus yards. We're talking about only one person has done it longer, a longer streak in history, and that's Drew Brees, who just retired. The reality of this is everything that Hoosh just said. The problem is that defense. You go back to Dan Quinn, 2013, 2014. Where was Dan Quinn? He was the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. They were first across the board. They went out and hired him to bring a defense close to that, and they didn't get close. They just laid and they just played and sat around being just an average, a 3rd tier type of defense, and that's the problem, Nick. Just straight black and white, and that's the analysis. Keep going with Matt Ryan. Fix that defense.
Well, and by the way, if you stay at 4 and don't draft a quarterback, you're guaranteed to get whoever you think is the best defensive player available or the best non-quarterback available, because quarterbacks are going 1, 2, 3. But the question I would have for the Falcons, even if they think, you know what, we need to turn the page from Matt Ryan, if they disagree with, they're like, you know what, we're a full rebuild. If they disagree with TJ and with Brandon, how many good quarterbacks do you think are actually going to be in this draft? Because you go back the last decade, Wilds, 2011, 4 first-round quarterbacks, 1 worked out. 2012, 4 first-round quarterbacks, 1 worked out. 2013, 14, 15, 16, there were, 8 first-round quarterbacks taken. None worked out. 2017, 2 of the 3. 2018, 3 of the 5. And 2019, 1 of the 3, I think, and last year's not fair to evaluate yet. I'm not sure why, Wilds, there seems to be such consensus or such belief that, oh yeah, this year's draft class, It's going to be 4 or 5 franchise quarterbacks in the first round. That's literally never happened in modern NFL history. So you even go back to 83. It's like, oh, look at all those great quarterbacks. Yeah, and the Chiefs took Blackledge. Like, so somebody is, or more than somebody, is going to wind up with a lemon. And I certainly wouldn't want to be picking with the 4th bite at the apple there.
Yeah, so here's the dilemma that the Falcons are in. They gave up the most passing yards in the NFL, so they should draft for need. The problem is, our old buddy Kyle Pitts says, I'm not the best tight end in the draft. I'm not the best tight end in the league. I might be the best tight end of all time. So if that actually happens, if you believe him, if you think he has all-time tight end potential, I don't think the Falcons should in 5 years like, oh, we passed on a mixture of Kittle, Kelsey, and Gronk because, we needed to get our secondary up to speed. Sorry. I think it would be a draft day failure. Take Kyle Pitts, Jenna, if you were in charge of it, Jenna.
I might be. They called me, but I sent it to voicemail just because I have to do Knicks medals, but I'll let you know what they say. Here we go. Nikola Jokic leading the Nuggets to a win over the Pistons last night. Nikola, 27 points in 27 minutes. I feel like that's good, but the Joker, not good enough. He missed a medal. Nick, who is making your podium today?
Yeah, Joker, victim of his own success. They blew him out so he didn't play enough minutes, so the line wasn't gaudy enough. Zion, 34 points on 67% shooting. Ho-hum night for him. He's on national TV tonight. He gets a bronze even in a loss. Silver medalist, Joel Embiid. The best big man alive, some would say. The best player alive. They'd be wrong, but that's still fine. 35 and 6. Oh, Luke Cornett. I'm shockingly, Luke Cornett and Taco Fall did not offer much resistance to Joel Embiid. Great roster building in Boston as always. And the gold.
Okay.
Stephen Curry. Look at Steph go. 41, 6, and 4. I will admit, I stayed up to watch this game. And then when the Warriors are down 10 with 4 minutes left, I fell asleep. Woke up this morning. Steph Curry gets a gold with the great comeback win. So there it is. The future face of the league in Zion. The one-time face of the league in Steph. And maybe this year's MVP in Embiid, Jenna.
Kevin Wildes, who just missed the cut, buddy.
Isaiah Thomas back on the floor, had 10 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Great game. He said his hip feels great. He's playing back-to-back. He'll play tonight against Brooklyn. Let's see the Pelicans win a game. Let Isaiah cook. Other sneaky storyline here besides Zion and Durant in the big three. Little Isaiah versus Kyrie traded from the Celtics. Horrible move from Danny Ainge.
Amazing.
I would like to see a little Isaiah.
Yeah, amazing. Wildes Isaiah could do that with that knife in his back from Danny Ainge. It's amazing that he could
Enough. The guy made 1, 2, 10 mistakes tops. He doesn't hear the end of it. TJ, thank you so much. We have to move on, talk some football. Otherwise, we'll be talking about Danny Ainge forever. First things first after this. But first, watch Tom Brady playing a little Star Wars. Check it out.
The dark side calls to you. You must make a choice. Will you join us?
No thanks. I'm already on a winning team.
A bold answer. Not wise, but bold.
First things first, time now for stories to start your morning, brought to you by Modelo, brewed for those with a fighting spirit. We're talking Russell Wilson. It has been quite the dramatic offseason for Russ, for the Seahawks. You got teammate Carlos Dunlap yesterday saying Russ told him he's in Seattle to stay. But Hall of Famer Warren Moon, still not convinced, said the Russ-Seattle marriage is, quote, not going to end very well. Brandon, start with you. You've been ahead of this story from the jump. What's your reaction to Warren Moon's comments?
Okay, I want this to be black and white, Jenna, because sometimes I talk and people don't listen. And I think we get confused at time when we're sitting on these shows, and there's a difference between reporting and opining. Reporting is like facts. Opining is I'm giving my opinion. So what Warren Moon did, he gave his opinion. But we're talking about Russell Wilson a couple times a week on all of our shows, every week for the past, couple of months. Because Russell Wilson hasn't sat up and said anything. Pete Carroll, the Seattle Seahawks organization, hasn't sat up and said anything. So here's the reality. Russell Wilson is going to be a Seattle Seahawk for a very long time. Russell Wilson is enthralled and enamored with Kobe Bryant's career and Derek Jeter's career where they played in one place for 20 years. But the key is they won. Derek Jeter is a winner. He's a legend. He's one of the best to ever do it. Kobe Bryant, he's won. He's done it at a high level. He's one of the best to ever do it. Russell Wilson, yes, he has won, and we do respect Russell, and we all appreciate how special he is, but he's won one Super Bowl. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes winning multiple Super Bowls. We're talking about Tom Brady, the GOAT, 7 Super Bowls. He wants to be in those conversations. So what happened is these two have sat down, and they talked about the philosophical difference that they had. What are we going to do on offense? Are you going to come in my kitchen and you're going to give me the pasta pans and skillets? Or are you going to, when I throw an interception, you're going to take my pot, you're going to take my skillet, and then you're going to say, you get out the kitchen, I'm bringing in the chef. No, that's not happening anymore. He has the whole kitchen. He has a whole damn restaurant, okay? That's what's happening. And then the other side is, are you going to give me everything I need, Nick, to actually get the job done? And we're talking about skill players, not bargaining shopping and going and get Brandon Marshall in his 13th year on one leg, or a Greg Olsen who's at the end of his career. So these two have sat down. They got on the same page. Their relationship is better than ever, and that is my report, not my opinion.
So I got a lot to run through here. So it sounds to me like you're saying, Brandon, maybe I've been trying to send Odell to Green Bay. Maybe while Rodgers been hosting Jeopardy, maybe the Seattle's like, hey, you a skill position guy. The guy wants to win. Maybe Odell. Maybe that makes sense there. That's first of all. Second of all, America needs to know this, and this is very important. Before Russ went on Brandon Marshall's show, before Russ went on Dan Patrick's show and started talking about his discontent in Seattle, Brandon on this show, weeks prior, said this was an issue. And I don't know how many people took him seriously because no one was talking about it. But Brandon was first to market on that, and now he is first to market saying, listen, folks, they have talked, and Russ has won the power struggle. And to that I say, and I didn't even know we were having this new sponsor, sponsored by Modelo. Hey, cheers to Brandon Marshall. I don't know if it's a little too early, but hey, they're a new sponsor, so cheers to Brandon Marshall for that. Yeah, you need to have a drink. Yeah. Third point is this one, Wilds. Third most important one is this. I do wonder if this is a full reconciliation or if this is, correct. We went to counseling, we feel better, but it could get rocky again. And I don't think we're going to know that for certain until we get into the season, Wilds. And now I'm just going to kick back and listen to this great reporting.
I totally agree with you, and I support you drinking on air at 9:30 in the morning. Jenna, Back to the Future reference coming. Get ready. Remember when Marty McFly sends Doc a little message?
Probably.
That's what I'm doing right now. This is the story that Russell Wilson is going to be happy in Seattle. Brandon, I'm going to put it in this envelope here. Put it in this envelope, and I won't open it up until week 11.
Burn it.
Okay? I'm not going to burn it, my friend. I'm not going to burn it. I'm sealing it now. In week 11, I'm going to take this envelope out. When they come off of a big loss, and you're like, oh, you sure did run a lot. Oh, and Russ like, oh, or he took a lot of sacks, Brandon. And I think I'm not as convinced as you, unless they go 16-0, that this isn't going to flare up again. We'll see this into the winter.
Okay, so here's the deal. The great Bill Parcells, who traded for me from Denver, got me from Denver to the Miami Dolphins, and I have a great relationship with him. He spent a lot of time with me, part of my transformation. And once he told me, he used to call me Rosie. He said, Rosie, let me tell you what you great players want. All you guys want is to be in position to succeed. That's all you want. And that's what Russell Wilson wants. That's what this whole thing is about. He's okay with losing a game, but he wants to lose a game the right way. He wants to lose a game knowing that we sold out this year to actually get the job done. So when you look at them bringing in Everett, the tight end, when you look at them bringing in Gabe Jackson, the center from help me out here, Nick, from the Las Vegas Raiders. That's a good start.
From Vegas.
That's the Las Vegas. That's a great start. They still have the draft. And then the biggest problem, Wiles, where you may have to take that out, if Pete Carroll comes in the kitchen and say, you know what, I'm bringing in my own chef, that's when you have to bring that out. But I don't see him reneging on what they already talked about.
If he does come in the kitchen, he should bring some Modelo's.
Oh, this is beer.
Great.
Leave the Modelo.
9:30 in the morning.
Some water.
I didn't even know we had a new sponsor.
It's too early.